Whenever we hear the word zodiac or astrology, immediately we recoil. You know, it's like when we hear auras, crystals, and that we sort of whoa, you know. But Satan is a perverter. Satan is a counterfeiter. He's not a creator. He doesn't think this stuff up for himself. He has never had an original thought other than I'm going to sin. That was an original thought. The origin of evil. But he's not a creator, he's a perverter, a counterfeiter. So he always takes that which is true and he twists it and he turns it to get people's minds off where they're meant to be. And where's every human being's mind meant to be? Focused in Christ. We need to be focused in Christ all the time. So we're looking today, we're starting in the book of beginnings again in Genesis chapter 1. So this is a series. It's going to be called Secrets in the Stars. And so today we're going to look at the biblical scriptural background for it. We'll look at some of the traditions that have gone along with it over time, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of the ancient astrology, just to give you a taste. Okay, Genesis chapter 1 verses 14 to 19. It's interesting that day 4 begins where God says, "Let there be lights in the firmaments of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmaments of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And so it was. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which we call the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night, which we call the moon. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the 4th day. I'm going to suggest to you that by the end of today's talk, your understanding of those verses is going to be totally different to what it's ever been since you read those verses for the first time. So let's begin in verse 14. God sets these lights in the heavens to be what? Signs, seasons. Tell me, what are they? Days and years. We went for a drive out to Wyand Falls, as I've heard that's how you pronounce it. Yesterday we went for a swim, and as we drove out along one of the roads, we came to a sign that looked like that. So it's a circle with a black circle with a black line through it. Who knows what that sign means?
No speed limit.
No speed limit, that's right. It means open road. Open road, no speed limit. We used to have these signs all over Australia. As soon as you left the town limits, there would be that sign on the road. Not 100 k's, 110, 80, whatever. It was that. It was everywhere.
And petrol was cheap, and V8s.
Yeah. No seatbelts. Right? No helmets on bikes. All of that. It means open road. Now that's a sign. Okay? You have to be told what that sign means, because you wouldn't know unless someone told you that's what it means. Okay? So often signs, it's not like now where we have universal signs where you've got a sort of a stick figure of a man, that's the men's toilets. It's sort of got to be international now because people can travel all over the world, so signs have to be recognisable all over the world. But years gone by, that was a sign. And so you had to be told what that sign meant, so that when you saw that sign you could go, oh, that's what that means. Okay? Now, with the topic that we have at hand, I could draw something like that, and I could say to you, what does that represent? And each of you, I could go around the room and say, okay, what does that represent to you? That's a dot-to-dot drawing, what does it mean? Unless there's little numbers that tell you you've got to join the dots in a certain order, you wouldn't know what that represented, would you? Wouldn't have a clue. Now, if I went to you and I said, well, there's no numbers there, and I said to you, that's a woman lying on her back and she's got a branch in her right hand and she's got an ear of corn in her left hand. You'd be going, you're crazy. What have you been smoking?
Got a good imagination.
Yeah, that's right. Especially when this star over here is the brightest of all the stars, right? Okay? There's a woman lying on her back and she's got her hand up like that. She's got a branch in this hand and an ear of corn in that hand. You just wouldn't do it. See, the whole thing with astrology is that it's not a dot-to-dot. It's something we've got to be really clear about. It's not a dot-to-dot line drawing that you can go, oh, look up in the sky and go, oh yeah, I can make out, that's a pair of scales. You would never pick it. That's the first point. And it's a really important point to understand. Because when God placed the stars in the heaven, as Christine said, He didn't just throw them out there randomly. Right? There was order to it. And when He threw those signs out, He spoke to people and He told them what the drawing was. Right? So He said, when you see this bright star in connection with these other stars, you're going to get a picture of a woman lying on her back with a branch in that hand and an ear of corn in that hand. Okay? That's how it works. The other thing is that astronomy and astrology are two different things. Astronomy is the study of the physical stars, the constellations, the placement of stars. Astrology has nothing to do with that. Astrology is the story that you attach to those figures. So astronomy basically hasn't changed. Our knowledge of it has grown and everything else. But astrology, it's very subjective. And this is becomes very clear. You can get 10 different newspapers from all over the world on the same day and go to the astrology page and look up your star sign, and you might get 10 different pieces of advice that could be contradictory. From the beginning of time, the placement of the stars, nothing's changed. And that as signs, God is the one who imposed the sign, and He explained it to Adam and Eve and the others. Now, the term seasons, these are appointments. So when you see something, right, in a certain place, you know that this is the season. This is the way we work. This is where we're up to in that period of time. Days are pretty obvious. Sun comes up, goes down. Moon comes up, goes down. And so we can understand a day is a 24-hour period. And we understand by the cycles of the moons and so on that there's 12 cycles in a year, and that makes, we come right back to the circle. So what's actually happened is that from our position on Earth, we watch the sun go around, and as it passes through the 12 signs, when it comes back to the beginning, that's a year. That's how we get 12 months in a year. Why aren't there 13 months or 24 months or something else? This is how we get 12 months in a year. It's all pretty fascinating. How many days make up a week? 7. According to ancient astronomy, you could see 5 planets with the naked eye, plus the sun, plus the moon. These are called the wanderers. These aren't fixed stars. These are what they understood stars that would wander, because every time of the month they're all in different places. They're the wanderers. So 7 days in a week. Each of the weeks was named after one of the wanderers. Sunday, Moon Day, Zeus Day. Zeus represented Mars, I think it was. And you can go through our days of the week now, and we finish with what? The 7th day is?
Saturn Day.
Saturn Day. So each of these wanderers, they had a colour, they had a name, and they had a number. I don't want to run too far ahead with it all, but just need to be clear. And so the only place that we get 7 is from this here. from the Bible. 7 days. God worked for 6 days and rested on the 7th day. And then to memorialise that, each of those days was given a name. Each of the 12 months of the year was given a name too. We have January, February. A lot of these names are Latin or Greek, whatever. But in the early days, they were named after the 12 signs of the zodiac. So the first month was whatever the beginning of that process was, which we'll come to in a minute. And then they went in order. So you knew exactly where you were, because when you looked up into the northern hemisphere sky and you sat under the polar star, on that month it might be Virgo. Why? Because there's Virgo. Next month Virgo's moved on and now we're into Libra. And then that moves on and then we're into whatever comes next. You got the idea? So each month was named after each one of the 12 signs of the zodiac. Okay, so that's how we get these things. So that's what God said. I'm placing these in the heavens to be for signs and for seasons, and that you can know days, months, and years, and all the rest of it. So this is how our calendar works. Romans chapter 1 and verse 19. Verse 19.
Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it to them.
And how has he done that? Verse 20, keep
The
reading.
invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
Okay, so what's that just said? Here's the timeline. Here's creation. When did Moses write the 5 books of the Bible? The first time we've got a written record of what God has said. Anyone got any idea?
About 2,500.
About 1500 BC.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is 2,500 years after creation.
Yeah, after creation. So for the first 2,500 years, there was no written word. Okay. After Moses wrote, and for the remainder of that period of time, we've got a written word. We've got this, right? And this has been added to after AD, whatever it might be, when the apostles and them started writing, from between AD 30 and AD 90, I suppose it would be. We've got the New Testament comes in here. So this is the Old Testament. Back here we had no testament, no written testament. And yet Paul says to the Roman church, he says that because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world. God starts showing things from the creation of the world forward. He's showing them things. He's manifesting himself to these people. And he's revealing things. And what sort of things is he revealing? It says, being understood by the things that are made. What's made? Well, it's the heavens.
Heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that in them is.
It's the earth. All of these things declare who God is and what God's about. And it says here in verse 20, even his eternal power and what? Godhead. So that they are without excuse. That means that all of these people from here to here had to know, just from what was written in the heavens, just from what they could determine from the earth and the sea, they had to know about the power of God and they had to know about his Godhead. Do you think those are two really important things for people to understand? Who is God? How do I relate to him? And why do I relate to him? Because he's the all-powerful God. If you don't understand these two principles, then you are without excuse. So the question that we have to then ask is, well, how did they know? And the answer is that because from this side, this was declared in the heavens, and on this side, it was declared in the Scriptures. Alright, let's now look at Psalm 19. And it's the one we've got written on our blackboard when we go out for telescope ministry. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. And then we get this switch. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweet also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. So we see clearly there two specific phases, don't we? The first phase, he's talking about the heavens declaring the glory of God, and the firmament showing his handiwork. So as we look up into the stars at night, we should go, wow, how did that get there? What's that all about? And in that question, the Spirit of God is able to speak to someone's heart. When we go outside and we observe nature, we should be walking around going, wow, look at the beauty in this thing. Is that just random chance? You know, is that just happened? Wow, how could that have happened? Okay, so it says here, verse 2 of Psalm 19, day unto day utters speech, and night unto knowledge showeth knowledge. So every day when we're out, it's speaking to us. Every night when we look around us, it's showing us knowledge. There's no speech or language where their voice is not heard. You can't go to any place on the earth where you can't hear the voice of the stars and the sun and the moon and the planets. Everyone knows about it. The line is gone out through all the earth. So the line that goes out is the path of the sun through the constellations. That's the line that has gone out through all the earth. Because you can go to China, you can go to the Middle East, you can go to Babylon, Persia, Mesopotamia, all those areas there. You can go over into North America and you can find the same story, or the same players at least, being used. It's the same 12 signs of the zodiac. It's the same major stars. It's the same 7 planets, the 7 wonders. They're in all the different cultures. Now, how could that be? Like if I took that picture of a few dots and sent it all around the world to different cultures and said, right, everyone get a consensus in your country and tell me what this set of dots means, bring them all back and we'll compare them all, right? They'd all be different. Then how does all of these different cultures, separated by oceans and mountain ranges and everything else, how do they all have the same players and basically the same story? How does that happen?
We've got to have collaborated.
There had to be a point where all of mankind was in one place, got the same story, and then went out. What do we call that?
Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel, when God confuses the languages. They come out of the flood. It's only 2 generations after that Nimrod is there out of Ham, right? Ham, Cush, Nimrod. And God has said, go into all the world and do what? Multiply and finish it. Go into all the world, multiply and fill the earth. That was the instruction given to Adam and Eve in the beginning. Right?
Subdue.
Yeah. Subdue the earth. But they didn't do that. What was the real issue at Babel? They congregated. They stuck together.
Centralized government.
Centralized government. What's the normal thing? Because I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but we're here now, so let's talk about it. What's the main thing we always see is the problem with Babel? What was their sin?
They weren't believing God, and they to build a tower.
Right.
themselves.
Defiance.
Yeah,
Right.
defiance.
So they didn't believe God, but God said, I'm going to put a rainbow into heaven and I'll never flood the earth again. They said, no, we don't trust you. We're going to build a tower that reaches to heaven. They get halfway to heaven and God says, well, there's a problem. We better stop this. Okay? That's how we've always understood it. There's a totally different way to understand it. We'll get to it in a minute. Because there's some supplied words that we've always understood. Because when the Bible translators come on the scene, what are they bringing with them? Their own preconceived ideas and opinions and ideas. And they're imposing it into the Scripture. But when we read the Scripture, we may find out that it's saying something totally different. So we'll get there in a moment, hopefully. If I don't, remind me, because it's worth going to. But I'm sure we will. Okay, so let's finish here. So he's saying the line goes out through all the earth, their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for a sun. So there's the ruling place for the sun. And the sun he likens as a what? Verse 5. A bridegroom coming out of his chamber. So he likens the sun as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Do you know in Scripture there's actually a place where it calls Jesus the S-U-N of righteousness? Who's the original one that the sun was meant to represent?
Lucifer.
Jesus.
Oh, was it?
The original, yeah.
The original was Jesus. This is what David's saying here in this psalm. He says, in them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. The sun's coming up. That's meant to represent Christ. Every day when the sun came up, we were meant to be thinking of the Son of God. And at night when the moon came out, we're meant to be thinking of the Son of God, the reflector of the light. Right? It was all meant to be revolving around the Father and the Son. And then he switches. So he goes, this is Psalm 19, 1 to 6, from here to here. And this is Psalm 19, 7 to 14, from there to there. So they're totally linked together. He's saying, before there was a written record from God, before the Scriptures were in place, before the law of the Lord was in place, and the law of the Lord is perfect and does all the things that it says in Psalm 19 there, it says before all of that, they had the same testimony, but it was just written in heaven. Do you get that? And that's what we're looking at. This is what the ancient astrologers understood. So here's the scenario. Day 4, God sets up the sun and the moon and he sets up the stars. Right? Some people believe that on that day he set up the stars throughout the universe. Would you agree some people believe that?
Yeah.
Everything, he created everything on that day.
I don't.
Okay, I don't. I'm the same as you, I don't. The stars I believe that God set up were the stars in the heavens that were for signs and seasons for this place. Right? Now, we understand today, and they would have had no knowledge of this in Adam's day, because they didn't have telescopes. How many stars can we see at night if you're in the best place on the planet, on the clearest night? The maximum amount of stars you'll be able to count in the sky
With the naked eye.
with the naked eye is about 2,000. Okay, 2,000. Scientists now are saying that we believe that the edge of the known universe, that is, as far as we can sort of see and figure it out, is 19.5 billion light years, which is a really long way.
So you're saying the rest of the universe was already created?
Yeah, because the angels were here long before the earth was, and
Who was here before man was created?
Wasn't it the devil and Satan?
Yeah, angels.
Angels. other worlds.
Were in heaven. Satan
heaven.
was cast out of heaven to the earth before Adam was even created. So,
Possibly other dimensions, though. It might not have necessarily been.
Genesis in the
our-
beginning is our beginning, not
Okay.
the beginning of.
Genesis is just about planet Earth.
yeah. Let me just go there and we'll get there. So, scientists today, astronomers today say that there's about 200 billion galaxies at an average of 200 billion stars per galaxy. Right? So that's 200 billion by 200 billion to get how many stars there are in the known universe. And it's that and that and that and that. So it's like 40 zillion or something.
Yeah, like
Right? It's a lot. It's a lot of zeros. So it's 40. I'll put 40 zillion.
that's why we need to live forever. See,
What did God say to Abraham? I'll make you a father of nations, and your seed will be as the stars of the heaven and as the sands of the sea. Scientists are now saying that they estimate that the sand of the sea is about the same as the stars in the universe.
yeah,
Isn't that bizarre? 70 zillion pieces of sand makes up the planet, on all the beaches of the planet. So if that's the case, that's pretty amazing. But all we can see out of 40 zillion, and I'm going to do all the zeros so people can just see how ridiculous this is, 2,000 is what we see
with the naked eye.
with the naked eye, even with a good naked eye. So it's not beyond the realms of being out there to think that God could have made all the rest of that less 2,000 when he made this. So Genesis through to Revelation has to do with this planet. He made the firmament, he put the stars in it that could be seen by the naked earth from this point on the earth. He made the seas and the waters, and everything had to revolve around this space in the cosmos, of which we are just a tiny, tiny little dot.
Yeah, because there was a lot of creation before the creation of Earth.
Yeah. Otherwise, what are you saying? You're saying, because this is where people have a problem. They say they get this term in the what?
Beginning.
Beginning. And they're saying, well, that beginning, there can only be one beginning. Not true. That's not true, is it?
The word the
I was going before my son had a beginning. I was going before Bree had a beginning. She was going before Aria and Eli had a beginning. Beginning is relative to where you're talking from, isn't it? Sorry, I interrupted you. But this is a relative term. Beginning what? It's the beginning of something.
Should really say in our beginning.
Yeah, in our beginning would be better. In the beginning was the Word, yeah?
Yep.
Before this beginning here
Yep.
was the Word with the Father,
Yep.
and was the Word divine. We don't have a problem with that. In the beginning of beginnings, in the very first beginning, the Father was there with the Son, because the Son was there before there was time. Beginning denotes time. And I just watched David Ashrick's sermon where he was emphatically saying that time is a measurement of change. God says, I change not. So God is not bound by time. Jesus said, I am the same.
yesterday, today, and forever.
So he doesn't get changed by time. But we do. I change over time. I look totally different to what I was 10 years, 15, 20, so years ago. So in the beginning could be relating to this, what a man could see with his eyes from this base. Is that reasonable? Could be. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying it could be. Well, when it says God made the stars also, and he made all of these things for signs and for seasons, he's saying I've put these in a certain order, right? Because as we go around the process, here's Libra, here's Sagittarius, they're all in their little thing, and this is what they look like from a position on Earth. And remember, where was Adam standing when in the garden God comes to him after the fall, right? And what had God said to Adam in the garden? Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between
Your seed,
dragon, between your seed and the seed of who? The woman. The seed of the woman. And who do we understand the seed of the woman to be? Christ. Right? The promised seed of Abraham was Christ. The seed of the woman is Christ. So all of those who are in Christ are at enmity with the dragon. What's the conflict? Who is the conflict between? It's between Christ and the serpent. That old serpent called the devil and Satan. This is who the conflict is between. It's been Christ. He's some of the other names given to him. He's the strong man. He's the one who binds Satan. Right? These are all symbols of Christ against the serpent. When we go into more detail into the astrology chart, this is who the whole thing is about. Do you know there's 3 serpents in the zodiac? There's Hydra, Draco, and serpents. 3 different serpents. And we'll look at that in just a moment. It's just mind-blowing because you see who's connected to these things. Well, wait till we get to Hercules. Wow. Without understanding of the Godhead, and you look at what Hercules is doing, this is mind-blowing. In modern astrology today, the cycle, like if you've got a cycle, and that if that wasn't obvious, what's the start of that circle and where's the end? You don't know. So arbitrarily, someone has to go, well, there's a line. So we start and we go in this direction, so this is the start and this is the end. Now we can do that, okay? Obviously, if there's a story out there, where you start and where you end is going to impact on that story. Right? This modern astrology starts with Aries and finishes with Pisces. Aries is what? The
ram, I think,
the ram, Pisces,
fish.
the fish, right? So that it starts and it goes around the process and it comes back to here. Okay. We need some evidence from Scripture or from archaeology, from somewhere to tell us where it starts and where it finishes. But wouldn't it be obvious to start in Virgo, the Virgin? The Virgin shall bring forth a seed, and there'll be enmity between her seed and your seed. Right? The seed, or another name for Christ is the branch, is the very name of the most brightest star in Virgo, called Spica. The old Arabic name is even clearer, but it's actually the brightest star, and it's in the hand of the woman down here. There's this, she's holding like an ear of corn, and it's the seed that's in her hand. It's the seed. So starting with Virgo, we go the seed of the woman to Libra, the required price paid, Scorpio, the mortal conflict, Sagittarius, the final triumph, life out of death in Capricorn, blessing out of victory in Aquarius, deliverance out of bondage in Pisces, glory out of humiliation in Aries, his glorious coming is Taurus, his rule on earth is Gemini, his possession held secure is Cancer, his enemies destroyed in Leo. That's the gospel story. That's Christ our Redeemer, that's the redeemed, and that's Christ our conquering King. So here's Adam, right? Pre-fall. He's in the garden. He's named all the animals. He's talking with God every night. They're sharing, communicating. Eve goes to the tree, eats of the fruit. Adam takes of the fruit and eats. They fall. Christ comes into the garden to talk to them. They run, they hide. What does Jesus do? Does he abandon them? He calls out, "Where are you?" "Oh, we're hiding behind the bush because we were afraid." "Have you eaten of that tree?" Of course he knew. "Come out. I've got something to show you." What's the first thing he did? Covers them with skins. He shows them that a price has to be paid. An innocent lamb has to die. Its blood has to be shed in order to cover your nakedness because the works of your hands are not adequate. Your fig leaves won't do the job. Right? He then points to Adam and he says, Adam, now look. See those stars up there? See that bright star? That's called Alzamuk. It means the seed. That's me. I am the one who's going to come out of the virgin woman. I am the branch. So there's 12 constellations. Okay, that's your Libra, Zebra and all that sort of stuff. Each constellation has 3, so it's 12 by 3. What they call, how would you pronounce that?
Deacons.
Okay, so the deacons are the helpers, so that's a nice way to think of it. That these are helping each of these houses. So you'll notice here on the left it's got the sign of Virgo with its deacons, and each constellation has ruling stars, that is, they in order of brightness. So the Alpha star is your number 1 star, and then it goes to the Beta star and then the Gamma star, and they go in less and less order of brightness. So the Alpha star is the most important. So the name of the Alpha star gives us the clue as to what the whole thing's about. Now Christine was just about to make a point, and we'll make it ourselves before we move on to that picture. Just go now into Psalm, there's actually 2 passages. In Isaiah chapter 40 verse 26. Read that through now with the understanding we have. Lift up your eyes on high and behold who hath created these things. What are they looking at? The stars. Who's created these things? That bringeth out their host by what? Number. By number. So they come by number in order. Right? And he says, who calleth them all by what?
Names.
Who named these constellations? God did. He did. By the greatness of his might, for that he is strong in power, not one faileth. Every story that he's put out there, every prophecy that's been put out there, will come to its final conclusion. So from Virgo at the beginning, we come right through to the end, to Leo. And who's Leo? It's the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the conquering king, who starts as a seed, goes through the humiliation of the cross, comes out as conquering king. And in that process, he's judge, he's advocate, he's intercessor, he's all of those different things. It's all there in the sky. So, what do we say? 40 zillion stars? All numbered, all named.
Gotcha. Getting it now.
Yeah. 2,000 stars
Yeah.
in the vicinity of this planet, all numbered, all named, for a specific reason. When Adam's put on the planet before he sins, what job does he give Adam to do?
Name the animals.
Name the animals. Here's a job for you, son. You can name the animals. I can't entrust to you the naming of the stars, because you haven't fallen yet. And you don't know what those stars represent. But now that you've fallen, son, I want you to understand that that bright star, in that group of stars, that's Alzamuk. That's the branch. That's the seed. That's me. This is Jesus talking in the garden, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's me. I'm no longer going to be this glorious being that comes to you and speaks to you face to face. I'm going to leave the realm of heaven. I'm going to come into the woman as a seed, and I'm going to grow as a man, and I'm going to have 2 natures. A human nature and a divine nature. Have a look here at the picture now. The son of Virgo and its deacons. You'll notice the ecliptic passes through the woman lying on her side, and she's got the branch in one hand and she's got the ear of corn in the other with the dominant seed spiker. Right? So out of a virgin shall come forth. Notice that the 3 deacons that are the ones that support this story, just above her is what? Comma Berenices. And what's the picture of? mother with a baby. Right? There's no halos over them. Right? So this is not Semiramis and Tammuz. This is Mary and Jesus. So there's the baby. This seed is now a baby.
And that's all one translation
Yeah.
got the whole idea, way back then.
Yeah,
So he knew from all this.
absolutely.
That's how he knew.
Yeah.
Hijacked.
So while he's sitting in the tree in the Garden of Eden, he's listening to what God's telling Adam.
Yeah.
Wow, he's just telling him the whole gospel in the stars. I didn't know that. I'm going to have to twist this story.
Counterfeit the whole story.
Counterfeit the whole story. I'm going to have to start it in a different place, end it in a different place, give it a whole different meaning, so that these dumb humans, when they hear it from some horoscope, are going to go, oh, that's me, I was born a Libra and I must be balanced. Well,
Do you know what's
the
the
zodiac is not about you, it's about him.
What's amazing is though none of the names and their meanings have been lost.
No, that's right. The names would remain the same. He's just taken it and twisted the story. Now, notice here the other one called Boots, with Arcturus, which is the dominant star in his knee. Boots. Notice what's his left foot doing?
It's raised.
What's raised? His heel. I will crush the serpent's head, but he shall bruise the heel. What's in his hand, left hand? What does a sickle do?
Reaps.
Reaps. Cast in thy sickle and reap, Revelation says. What's in his right hand? A staff. What does the staff do? Looks after the sheep, right? It's the staff. He will rule with a staff of iron. So this is the harvester. This is the shepherd. This is Christ, whose heel will be bruised. Right?
And God says in Isaiah, I will lead you with my righteous right hand.
Yeah. All there. Look, you can go through the scriptures and just keep adding scripture and scripture
My
and
rod
scripture
and
on
my
top.
staff, they comfort me.
Yeah. Go down to the Centaurus. Look at Centaurus. What is Centaurus? He's part man, part beast. Right? But this is the dual nature of Christ. That there, the first part, Virgo, can represent the woman, the seed grows, he's got two natures, and he's the reaper, he's the shepherd, the ruler, all of those things. Now Libra is the scales. Now notice here you've got Lupus, the victim, you've got the cross, and you've got the crown. You tell me the story. Just from those four pictures, you tell me the story. You've got the scales, you've got the victim, you've got the cross, and you've got the crown. What else is weighed in the balances and found wanting?
Our lives.
Humanity. As soon as Adam sinned, what happened to us? We all came under the curse. The scales were tipped. So sin and death was holding that side of the scale down. What did God have to do?
Give his unbegotten Son.
He had to place something on here, the ransom, to buy back the fallen race. He's got to place something over here. So what does he place? His Son, the seed of the woman that becomes the child, that becomes the conqueror, that becomes everything from Virgo. That one is now placed on the scale, right? And man is brought back up into relationship with God. So to bring those scales back into balance, God had to provide an offering. Now, look at it from another perspective. Here's Christ in heaven, sees Adam fall. He's got two options. What are those two options?
One option is what he did.
One option is what he did, that he gave his life to redeem humanity.
The
His
other
other
option,
option,
let it all go and destroy
let him go.
Start again.
Let him go. He's up in heaven. He already has the crown. Does he not? As the Christ. The crown is assured to him. The cross is a choice. So Christ himself has to weigh up in the balances. Are they worth it? because I'm going to offer my crown and take their cross. I'm going to give up my life and pay their death. That's a powerful story to me. That one right there does it for me. That Christ was willing to lay aside his crown and take upon himself my death, that I can then inherit his crown. That's the gospel, right there. Flick over to the next page. This one is Scorpio. Notice that Scorpio is down on the ecliptic, and the brightest star is Antares. It's the brightest, it's the biggest sun, Antares. And it's situated in Scorpio, the scorpion, right where the heart of the scorpion is. And you'll notice above him is Ophiuchus, which is the strong man. And what's the strong man doing?
Stepping on the scorpion and wrestling the snake.
That's right. And this diagram is not so good, but notice on his right leg, his right foot, his right heel is up. Right? He's wrestling the snake. What is the snake reaching for?
Crown.
The crown that we just saw. Who wants Christ's crown?
Serpent.
The serpent. Who does the crown belong to? Christ and
Father.
And us.
that's my crown now. That's my crown now. Is Satan still trying to take my crown from me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every day, every moment of every day, he's making a push towards it. He wants my crown, but that's my crown now. This is what I inherit through Christ. This is what he offers me now. I've given up my crown so that you can have my crown. So who's Ophiuchus? Who's the strong man? Holding back the serpent from reaching the crown. It's Christ. Christ is the strong man, holding back the serpent. His foot is on the scorpion that he's bound to try and bruise him. Where's the scorpion's tail aiming for? For his right foot. He wants to bruise him in his heel. Now go above him, turn the page upside down so you can see the picture. This is Hercules. This is the third deacon of Scorpio. This is the strong man who has the lion's coat over him, and he's a hunter. He's got the bow and arrow, and he's got the club, and what's in his left hand?
Three serpents and a branch.
A three-headed serpent. Now that says something to me.
Doesn't it, friend?
I look at that and I go, you're kidding.
Oh, mate. It's amazing.
You're talking the Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is amazing.
How does the serpent represent him in every culture of the world? A trinity, isn't it? But there he is, and he's holding this club. And what does he want to do to Hydra the snake? He wants to bash it. What does Jesus want to do to the false gods that are presented to his children today?
Fishbowl fathers.
Just bash it.
Smash them.
Because he knows that what comes out of the tongue of the snake, what does yours look like?
Forked tongue.
Forked tongue. Forked tongue represents a lie. That's Scorpio. Is that a clear picture of the gospel? Really clear. We go right through to come to the last one now. We're not doing them all now, just a touch. This is Leo. This is Hydra, the snake, the serpent. And you'll notice that there's two things happening to the snake. One is the cup and the other is the crow or the raven. What's the raven doing? Pecking at the snake. The cup, you may not be able to pick it up there, but if you look really closely in the base of the cup, there's two little black dots. The cup, can you see those two little black dots? The cup shares two of the stars with the serpent. The cup represents the cup of God's wrath that is going to be poured out on that serpent. It's impossible for the snake to get away from the cup. It can't detach itself from the cup. It's inevitable that the cup of wrath is going to be poured out on the snake. And what's the very last thing that happens? Jesus says in Matthew 24, he says, where the bodies are, who comes in?
The birds.
The birds, to devour the bodies. The final picture in the whole plan of salvation is the serpent being consumed by the bird. The utter defeat of the serpent. Notice that Leo, the ruling lion, where's his right paw? On the serpent's head. He has absolute authority over the serpent. Isn't that brilliant? Just mind-blowing. That's an overview of the gospel in the stars. Does that make a bit of sense?
Yeah.
A little bit? It's amazing, isn't it?
And it really,
Yeah, it is stunning. Absolutely stunning. So on a time frame from creation, well, I guess we should actually say from the fall, but creation, here we are in 2014. It wasn't until about 600 BCE with Babylon that the modern sort of story, this is, I'm going to call it modern astrology, because that's basically where it came from. It came from Babylon, it came through the Greeks, and then the Romans added Latin names to it, and they fiddled with it. So it was basically from here that the story all started to twist and turn, which was all pointing back to this event. That's the Tower of Babel, Leaning Tower of Babel. Okay? Which was just after this event, which was the flood. Right? So the New World religion began in Babel. The gateway to God. This is the new gateway, the new entryway to God. And it's Nimrod the son. It's Semiramis who has the Immaculate Conception and brings forth Tammuz, the Immaculate Child. It's the 25 elders in Ezekiel worshipping the rising sun with their backs to God, saying, we reject you, we accept you. It's the women on the step weeping for Tammuz. Right? This is the religion. This is the New World, New Age, Trinity religion. All seeing eye. Did anyone see the fireworks in Sydney?
no.
Sydney Harbour Bridge fireworks display was somewhere on the bridge like this. There was this with an all-seeing eye.
It's funny because
And it was looking left, centre, right and back.
we were in Sydney like a week before, and we drove over the Harbour Bridge, and I was like, what's that shape? That's going to be an interesting fireworks display.
The pictures that you have in the booklet, have you got them from like a website or something?
Okay, that's just a simplistic view. Let me get this one out. They're just simplified pictures.
Of what people use to map the stars?
So that's what's called a planisphere.
Okay.
Right?
Because I've always found it really hard to see the picture on the stars.
Well, you can't.
You can't.
That's what I said earlier. It's not a dot-to-dot drawing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
Someone has to tell you what those stars
So
represent.
you're saying that basically the reason why I've never been able to see the pictures is because you have to really know
Yeah.
what they are and
Someone has to say that's Scorpio and there's the
Yeah.
stars that you go to.
So Christ actually showed.
he made like sort of like a picture and then people have taken
Yeah.
that same picture
And nothing's changed since Adam.
In
The
the pictures.
pictures are the same. And you can go to any culture in the world and they'll have the same pictures.
Yeah.
They'll all have Virgo and they'll all have the lion, they'll all have those pictures. They're all the same.
Do we know who kind of came up with
Yeah,
said
Christ.
that, oh, I figured this out,
Well,
Yeah,
that's what we're
Christ.
saying. God
Christ.
did.
Yeah, Christ
oh yeah,
showed
yeah, I
it
know
to
that,
Adam.
but
No,
who kind of drew all the drawings initially and said,
God did in the garden. And here's a really interesting point.
So is it kind of just like
saying
something
that
that
no
was passed down?
Yes.
No one's claimed.
Astrology can't explain where it came
Yeah.
from. Right? Modern astrology can't explain where the pictures come from.
So no
Passed
one's
down.
It's not remarkably related to the actual dots.
No,
No,
They
No,
can't
that's what he
explain.
said.
no, they
at the
can't
beginning.
explain.
That's
Because no one can explain how you get pictures from dots where
Yeah.
the dots aren't very clearly dot to dot.
So it's handed down.
So it's handed
And
down.
that's critical.
Yeah, it is
big
critical.
time.
And what makes it critical is on a time frame like this, which is what I was drawing before. It goes back here. From creation through to here, this is what I'm calling ancient astrology,
Real astrology.
real astrology, right? And this was from Jesus sitting in the garden with Adam and saying, okay, Adam,
This is this and this is
see
this.
that scorpion down there? That's the serpent in the tree. But notice that the strong man has got his foot on the heart of the serpent, but his heel's raised because the serpent's going to bruise me. Now, this is Genesis 3:15. But he's holding back the serpent from getting the crown. Adam would go, wow.
And with a greater mind than what we've got now to really take it in. And
Take it in
Understand.
the clarity that he would have seen it with.
You
Yes.
don't need the written scriptures. If you know that, it's there.
That's right. But today in 2014, you wouldn't know about that
No.
because this here is masking it.
yeah.
And this is our goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
To go to the world and say, this is a counterfeit, right? Here's the real. Get real.
Yeah.
This is the original purpose for which it's made. There are aspects in here that will confirm this.
So you're saying that all of the pictures don't line up necessarily with the stars, alright? But in every culture around the world,
They, are
they all have the
pictures.
same pictures.
They're
Yeah.
consistent.
The same pictures, the same dominant stars, the same deacons associated with each of those houses.
So
It's
as
all
Adam-
the same.
So
It's
as
only
Adam
two
was
ways.
told,
Sorry?
as Adam was told and drew it out, he would have given it to his sons and their sons and
Yeah.
passed it down.
So Adam gave it to Seth.
Yep.
Seth gives it to Enoch.
Yep.
Now you go to the writings of Josephus, and it's in one of these books, and he says that Adam, Seth, and Enoch, did they all live together at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? They were all
For
living
hundreds and
together.
hundreds of years.
Right? They built two towers, one out of brick and the other out of stone, like out of a rock. And on the top of each of these pillars, because these guys knew that God was going to destroy the earth once with water and once with fire. So they built two pillars, so that if this one got destroyed by the water, this one might survive. On the top of these pillars, they had one of these,
A star chart.
a planisphere, it's called. What happened? So this is Josephus. He's a Jewish historian. He's there with Titus when Titus is besieging Jerusalem and the temple gets destroyed. So this guy is a well-known historian. So he's gone back into Jewish traditions and into all of the early writings, and he's put together a book, and I forget what it's called, but anyway, in book 1, he talks about these two pillars with these planispheres on top. Okay? That were there to preserve so that when the flood came, there would be a record of this. They didn't want to lose the story. Right? After the flood, Nimrod builds a tower
Out of brick.
out of brick. Find the story and let's look at it. It's only one verse. If you can. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Okay? From that we read, they built a tower that is to do what?
His top may reach.
Whose top may reach to heaven. What words are supplied? May reach. Read it without those words there. They said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top unto heaven." What was he building? he's rebuilding the tower to have the heavens on top so they wouldn't lose what they had before the flood, because they had lost it in the flood, and they're trying to preserve this antediluvian story so that they can maintain their understanding of everything that's going on. Right? And the reason they did that was because in case they got scattered, they would all be able to do what? Take that knowledge with them wherever they went. So we come on the scene and we go to China and find they've got the same story. We go to America and we find they've got the same story. We go into the Middle East, they've got the same story. Wherever you go, they've got the same zodiac story. Where did they get it from? From here.
On the top of the tower.
The towers were built in 7 layers.
Ziggurat.
And it started down here with this was Saturn, and it was black. Then they would go up in levels. And in this book here, he describes what a historian back in the 1820s had found in Arabia. They'd found one of these ziggurats, that they called them. They weren't necessarily temples to the gods. These were observatories. These were planetarium observatories where they could get up out of the hustle and bustle of the world into the clear space and look up. This was like 135 feet high, this guy he had. And it goes back up. So the top level was often gold, which represented the sun, right? And there may or may not have been human sacrifices or animal sacrifices done there. There may have been. But on the very top they had a tower, and on the top of it they had a planetarium with this inscribed. And you can go to the British Museum today, and they've found remnants of some of these old planispheres, and it actually talks about everything we've just talked about God coming out and setting all this up and everything that he does. It's incredible, isn't it?
So would that be the names of the days of the week then? Like Sunday, Moon Day,
Yeah. Down to the 7th day.
Tuesday, which is Mardi in French, Mars Day, Mardi,
Mercredi, Wednesday, Wednesday.
Mercredi in French, Mercury Day, which is our
Yeah.
Tuesday. Sorry, our
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Woden is Mercury, right? Thursday is Thor's Day, which in French is Jeudi, Jupiter Day.
Yeah.
Then
Bingo.
Vendredi, which is Venus Day, which the Germanic goddess Freya
Yeah.
is Venus. So Venus Day, and then
Saturn
English
Day.
reverts back to the Latin Saturn Day.
Saturday, yeah. And what does everything rest on? The 7th day.
Sabbath.
It's the rest day. Everything rests on the base of the Sabbath. And the Sabbath indicates who our God is, doesn't it?
Yep.
The issue at the end is going to be, what is the basis of your belief system? Is it going to be the God who created everything, or is it going to be the sun at the top? Is it going to be a Sunday God or a Sabbath God? That's the crisis at the end, because everything comes right back in a cycle to where it left in the beginning.
And that's the pyramid as well, with the all-seeing eye is at the top.
Yeah.
But
And that's this.
God's structure, the structure of God's kingdom is a reverse pyramid.
See, that's this. See, the planetarium is the all-seeing eye. This is the all-seeing eye. It's the zodiac system that reveals to us the truth about God. Right? That there is the eye that's looking out. It's the all-seeing eye. It's just that Satan puts himself as that eye.
Counterfeited it.
Because he says, this is my system. This is my system. Yes, there was an ancient one. I've disguised it. Now everyone's following this. Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy Reagan, she had an astrologer on the payroll. Princess Di had an astrologer on the payroll.
Read up in the UN.
Adolf Hitler had an astrologer on the payroll. Our role is to go to the world and say, it's not this, it's this. It's not this day, it's this day. It's not this God, it's this God. this is truth. This is what it's all about. What I want to challenge people with who are living up in this time frame is to say, look, how do you know that what you believe is actually true? Let me give you another option that makes just as much sense, that presents just as credible a story, in fact probably more so, and coming to an understanding that this is a counterfeit, this is an illusion, this is a delusion.